What's up, guys? Ben here with Tactical Nutrition. We are cutting through the matrix, and in this video I just want to talk about how to craft a program. Now, one of the biggest mistakes, I'm not trying to point out or be judgmental, but if you don't know what your mistakes are or your problems, you're going to have a hard time solving them. So one of the biggest mistakes, because I've been training people for years and I've been to a lot of different gyms and just kind of talk to people about their journeys and their results and what's worked and what hasn't worked and different ideas and things like that, spitballing. And one of the things I notice is that there's just a lot of randomness. Now, there is something called muscle confusion, which is the idea that, if you do new exercises, you work your muscles in different ways and it can cause a further growth stimulus, or, it can spark growth. But that's really not the same thing as, just doing random stuff. Now, what do I mean by random stuff? A lot of people are just kind of picking, it just seems like very random exercises and going through with them, not really paying any attention to the weight that they're using or the amount of reps that they're using or their rest periods. Or these are things that you should have an idea about when you're doing a program. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm not going to dwell on the problems. I just want to talk about a simple way that you can create a structure for your workouts, and without having to write everything down and be OCD anal retentive about the whole thing, but also be able to mix it up and have fun and do different exercises and make consistent, constant growth. Right? Now, you can only make so much growth before you kind of tap out, but very few people are reaching that full potential. Anyway, so what I'm saying here, when I'm, there's basically four, well, we'll see how many of these movement patterns actually end up being, but there's less than 10, right? What I'm going to say is there's lower body push moves. Now, what this means is squats, leg presses. You could say leg extensions, but for the purpose of the program, don't make the foundation of your program any of these machines or isolation moves. Those are just there as accessories, honestly. What you want to do is, so there's lower body push, i.e. the squat. Now, what you can do is, I have certain benchmarks that I try to maintain. I have about a small handful of things that I'm monitoring on a weekly basis. And if I'm hitting that number, then I'm okay. And then I can, from there, notice and start to make other goals, but I don't want certain numbers to drop. One of those is the back squat. So for me personally, my end goal is to be able to do 315 pounds for 10 reps. I'm actually pretty far short of that right now. My legs have suffered a little bit the last couple of years. I'm not going to lie, for various reasons. But so that's kind of my benchmark. Once I hit 315 for 10 on a back squat, I don't have too much more that I really want to do with the squat. I'm not trying to compete and do, I don't need to squat 500 pounds. Would it be nice? I guess. But anyway, so it's I'm just saying, one of the numbers I'm choosing is 315 back squat for 10. Another is deadlift. Now, I'd like to get back to being able to do 500 for one single, just a 500 pound max. I'm short of that as well. Admittedly, part of it probably is that I'm getting older. I'm 40, so definitely not 25 anymore. But also, I haven't been deadlifting as much. See how I'm already how the mind of a trainer works, where as I'm talking to you, I'm reflecting on my own program. So anyway, let's say I have a 315 for 10 back squat and then a 500 pound deadlift. Now that deadlift is what we call a lower body pull, right? So you've got a lower body push, a lower body pull. Pulling means that it's using hamstrings, glutes, and lower back. I mean, among other things, it does use your quads as well, but for the most part, a pull implies hamstrings and hamstrings and glutes, and a push involves quads, which I think makes internal sense, right? Now there's upper body push. You could do a horizontal push and a horizontal pull and an overhead push and a vertical pull, right? So what do I mean by that? By a upper body push would be bench press, push-ups, dumbbell press, all those variations. There's only so much you can do, right, for chest exercises. The pull, the upper body pull, would be barbell rows or you can do machine rows, but I like to stick to barbells. That's going to be your most effective thing. And then an upper body push would be your shoulder press, and then an upper body pull, or a vertical pull would be pull-ups and chin-ups, right? If you're doing each of these that I just named off, you're going to have if you're doing them properly, you're going to have a very symmetrical physique. Now, one thing about these large muscle group exercises I'm talking about here, notice how these are all what it's called a compound lift. That means that there's multiple joints moving per lift. Every single thing I just listed there involves either your shoulder and your elbow joint, or your hip and your knee and your ankle joint, or again, like basically those joints, right? That's what's called a compound movement. Multiple muscle groups working at the same time. And if you do that right there, so like, I'll just tell you my goals with those different lifts, okay? So I've got my 315 for 10 back squat. I've got my 500-pound deadlift. Upper body push, I'd say like, I have a shoulder injury, so I don't bench that much. But if I could do 100-pound dumbbell bench press for like 10 reps, that would be good for me. And if I can so that's my upper body push. And then for my upper body horizontal pull would be barbell rows. If I can do like 185 for 10 with strict form, right? That's my benchmark. And then for pull-ups, it's like I want to be able to do 15 wide grip pull-ups. Or something like that, right? So I know if any of those numbers start to drop like incongruously, I know that I'm missing part of my program. And so anyway, you would revolve your workouts around these, I guess, 6 movements, right? Lower push, lower pull, upper, these 6 different movement patterns. That's it. So now from there, now you can do your variations. This is where you don't have to just do back squats. I mean, there's a million things you can do. But everything you're doing, this is kind of a big part of this video. Everything you're doing accessory-wise, you should basically be doing it not in order to like necessarily look better, but in order to make those other lifts stronger, right? So if I'm doing machine rows, or again, there's a million different, you could use a band and do rows. You can use a dumbbell and do single arm rows. You can use the cable and do rows, right? You can use a kettlebell. You can use the TRX bands. All this stuff is going to be effective, but it's all meant to work on that horizontal pull movement, the row, right? They're accessory exercises. And so, but they're variations, but it's not random because they're all very similar to the beginning goal. Does that make sense? So let's say for squats, right? Instead of doing back squats, you can do front squats. You can do overhead squats. You can do goblet squats where you hold a dumbbell like this, or you can do kettlebell squats, or you can do body weight squats. You can do jump squats. And of course you can do like lunges and reverse lunges, but notice how all these other movements are meant to make your squat stronger. As long as that's the thing you need to monitor. That's what I guess that's a crux of this video is, you don't need to unless you really want to, for whatever reason, I don't pay attention to how many, I don't remember every single lift I did, during the work. I don't know all my numbers. I do mix it up quite a bit, but I'm not sitting there trying to, pay attention to how many reps am I getting stronger with my kettlebell squats. It's more like, is my back squat going up? So you should be doing these movements, these major movements, the 6 movement patterns that I just talked about, throughout the week. So week to week, you can tell. You know what I mean? It's now there's specialized programs all over the place, and maybe you just don't want to do any back squats. I get that. That's just how I structure a program. But it's even if you're not doing back squats, even if you're just doing leg press like a lot of people do, which I think is a mistake because it's not nearly the same. You get these heroes out there on Instagram all the time I just leg press 1,200 pounds, and it's whatever. What's your squat? They probably can't even squat 225. So who cares about your 1,200 pound leg press? Sorry, that's just a little rant there. Now, it's an accessory move. You could do squats and then do leg press, but it's not going to be a replacement. That's the key. So now we've got like the overhead. Now moving right along, right? So like overhead presses, which is like a mainstay. That's one of the best upper body exercises you can do. I prefer to do them standing with the barbell. Now, what this does by standing, and this is kind of off topic, but by standing, you utilize your core. So you're also strengthening your abs and your back, obviously your shoulders, your upper back, things like that. You're challenging yourself and making those core and making all those little stabilizer muscles, the serratus, like those kind of like rib cage muscles. You're hitting all the weak spots. And so that's another reason why you should do all these compound moves mainly, is because when you're doing compound moves, like I was saying, you're going to build a symmetrical physique. Whereas if you're one of these people, you can tell people that are doing like random stuff because they have glaring weaknesses. You know what I mean? Because they're focusing on all these small little movements, and maybe they just don't care, you know, but like it's some people that just have tiny legs, and, you know, it could be partly genetics, but like if you're doing deadlifts and squats, even if you're not going super heavy, you're at least going to have proportionate legs to your upper body. And if you just do bicep curls, you know what I mean? Like, I just think most guys have a certain kind of superhero look that they want, and you can leave no muscle left behind in order to have that kind of physique. And that's why these big lifts are so important. So moving right along, you know, I hope this makes sense, you know, structuring your workouts around those basic foundational movement patterns, and then kind of like picking off little variations to the side, you know, so it's like instead of doing pull-ups all the time, you can do your lat pull-down machine, although it's not a replacement. That's the thing. If you can do pull-ups, do pull-ups. They're a lot harder. Plus, they involve more muscle groups. Anytime you can get away from machines and cables, you're going to recruit a lot different muscle groups, and that's gonna yield dividends down the line. Trust me, especially like in your core. So you could do, but again, like, I mean, so if I'm gonna do instead, like, I'll do my pull-ups, but let's just say I've been doing pull-ups every single day, which I generally do, and you know I want to switch it up. Yeah, I can grab the band and hook it up and do band pull downs, or grab the cable and do one armed, or do chin ups and like vary the grips, and you can do all types of stuff. But it's all revolving around the pull up, right? So again, like if you just like, you should, you know, you start your if you do, like, here's what I'd recommend. There's lots of different programs, but I think a great one for people, especially if you, let's say you want to work out 4 times a week. I like to work out every day if I can. I just love the gym. I like the feeling, the endorphins. It's more psychological, but I don't beat myself up every single day. You need to recover. But, so I lost my train of thought there. So like what I would recommend is 4 times a week. So let's say, and this is how you can structure a program, but you don't have to write everything down. I would recommend though that you write things down at first and write down your big lifts, right? I guess that's a good point that I should come to right there, is like those big 6 movement patterns, write down those numbers, at least have a benchmark, right? So you know if you're slipping in any of those departments. And so you can work out, let's say Monday would be like a full body. That means you can do, I mean, when I was in college and I put on a ton of weight, it was deadlift, squat, bench. I'd do it all in the same day. And then I'd take a day off, you know, and I would do that 3 times a week. And then I would throw in some other exercises, and I was just, you know, I wasn't missing anything. But so like Monday could be full body, and then Tuesday could be like full body emphasis on lower body, right? And then you take Wednesday off, and then Thursday is full body, and then Friday is full body, upper body, intense. Now, when I say full body, let me caveat that I do not mean doing a bunch of, again, I never mean doing a bunch of isolation exercises. A full body workout is not, to me, is not, you know, shoulder raises, bicep curls, tricep extensions, leg extensions, glute thrusts, crunches, like front raises and chest, flies. That's not what I mean by full body. What I mean by full body is you're doing the compound movements. So you can do deadlift on Monday, that's full body, and then you can still hit your legs, right? Or I guess if it's going to just be a full body workout, then you could do deadlifts and squats and push-ups. And then Tuesday would be full body emphasis on the lower body. So now let's just say you do squats on that day, and then you do the leg extensions. You see where I'm getting here? And then Wednesday's off, Thursday's full body again. Let's say you do shoulder. There's just I'm not going to get into the individual programs. That's one reason why you could check me out at tacticalnutrition.net. I write these custom programs for people. Not for free, of course. But I hope this kind of helps a little bit. The key takeaways from this video are thus. Stick to the larger muscle groups. Be consistent with them so you have something that you can make a benchmark, because what you can measure, you can manage. Right? Just like you should measure your weight and your body fat. You can measure your squat, deadlift, bench. How many push-ups can you do? How many pull-ups can you do? That's really what matters. You don't need to see how many crunches you can do. That's stupid. So, stick to these main big movements and then branch out on the side to kind of hit the weak spots. Maybe put a little emphasis on so let's just say I was neglecting my shoulders for a while, not a lot of volume. And so what I did is I would do full body days, and then I would just do an emphasis on my shoulder that day. I would do a lot of lateral raises and rear delt raises, flies, and all that stuff. I would put an emphasis on a certain body part that day, and then just kind of do that day. And then, you see what I'm saying here. But if you stick around the compound moves and you realize those 6 movement patterns: the lower body push, the lower body pull, the upper body horizontal and vertical push-pull. If you hit those movement patterns consistently, you're not going to leave any muscle groups behind, essentially. And unless you have a really specific goal that you're training for, you need to do forearm work or anything like that. But, you're going to make consistent progress. And from there, you just continue to expand those numbers, hopefully increase those numbers, especially the deadlift, which I think is the king of exercises. So track those, and then if something's not working, or maybe you're getting weaker at one of these bigger movements, that's when you start to analyze your program a little bit. And you don't have to write it down and go to ChatGPT to do that. All you have to do is look at, okay, my squat has gone down a lot. And then you can kind of look back and just be okay, now that I think about it, I haven't been doing a lot of quad stuff, or I took a few weeks off or whatever it is. It's okay, well, now you move back into it and get back to the grind. So guys, just the basics of starting a program. Obviously, you can do whatever you want. There's, some people just like to do bodyweight stuff, calisthenics. If you're training for sports or anything like that, you're going to do some specialty stuff. But this is just the average person going to the gym that really just wants to make progress. So I hope that helps. Hit me up on Instagram if you can, Tactical Nutrition Fit. Don't forget to share the videos. Commenting is the biggest thing. The algorithm will slaughter these videos if people don't engage. Just viewing it doesn't do a whole lot. But thanks for checking it out. Leave your comments below. I'll see you guys in the next video.